What's going on? I hope you guys are doing great. Today, first things first, I got a full slate of things to do. I got 4 hours to do this stuff in, so I got to get trucking. First things first, I've got to take this cover off right here in front of the radiator. I got to measure my transmission cooler down there. I'm going to be putting a bigger one on there. I'm going to put all new transmission cooler lines, AN fittings, and everything else on that. I'm already starting to get parts in for this car I've ordered. I got a brand new a speedometer cable. The one that's in this car finally broke. It's original to the car, so I can't be too upset about that. It's older than I am. Also today I got to be putting brakes on a 2009 Toyota Rav4. If you guys want to see that, stay tuned for that. Okay, I got this thing took loose. You can see down in here I got plenty of room for activities. This is my transmission cooler. It's really small. It's smaller than I thought it was. I haven't looked at it in a while. I do remember when I put this electronic fan in here, I cut out a piece of paper basically the same shape as this cooler, and I turned the fan on, and the fan sucked the paper up to this cooler here, so I know the fan pulls enough through here. But I think I'm going to go with a bigger one, probably the same width of the radiator. The radiator's 20 inches wide, so I'm probably going to just stick one in here 20 inches wide, the whole width of this. Well, I decided I'm going to start this thing up and let it run for a minute. 6 pumps with a throttle, fired right up. That electric fuel pump makes a world of a difference. This thing hasn't started up and ran in 2 months, 2 or 3 months. It's just been sitting here idling for a couple minutes. Alright, I've been getting a few questions about when's the next stuff on the buggy going to happen. Don't worry, it's coming. I've just been focusing on the old heavy Chevy over there because it's broken and I want it fixed. I drive all my stuff during the summer. I don't build stuff and let it sit. I hate that more than anything. I know people that's done that. I don't understand why you do that. If you build something and you don't ever use it. But I'm going to, some of the upgrades are I'm going to put a bigger oil breather on this thing. Crankcase breather, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to change it all over to AN fittings because I like those way better than the old school stuff. So I'm going to swap all that over, maybe do some new wire link. Next up on the docket to do, we're going to start on my stepmom's 09 Toyota Rav4 here. We're going to put like the rear brakes on it. I had actually had a friend of mine ask me the other day. He's like, "What do you think about key fobs, push button start?" I'm not a fan of it. Me being a mechanic, I work on this stuff every day. This car in particular, she's been stranded twice because the key fob was dead. Come out of the grocery store, go to unlock your car, it won't unlock. Take the key, she has a little key thing you can slide off here, and there's no ignition switch, so you can't start the car up. So you can't start the car and the key fob's dead. I've actually had to go to customers' houses. Some of these key fobs, like this one in particular, you can take apart and put a new battery in. Some of them you can't. Some of them you have to take to the dealer now and have them programmed to the car. And that's just more money. To me, a key switch worked perfect for years. Yeah, you had sometimes the ignition switch would fail or the electrical part would fail. I mean, my 4Runner in particular, it's an 86 model. It still has the original key switch in it. I did put a new electrical part of the ignition switch in it not too long ago, but it's from 1986. I mean, come on now. One other thing I like to do on these Toyotas when I'm taking the tires off is take off the center cap here. I always use like a little pry bar like this, little bent one. There's little notches, see right here, see a little notch right there? It'll be in here just like that. You just pop it off. So many people, they'll take their lug nut socket or just a big socket like this when they take the lug nuts off, and they will scratch the inner part of these caps up really bad, and it just looks like crap. I don't like it. I like to treat people's stuff like it's mine, so I always just pop those off. Well, I've already done the driver's side. I want to show you guys what I did on the driver's side. I'm going to do it on the passenger side. One thing I get from people from time to time, customers or whatnot, what kind of wrenches do you like? These are one of my favorite wrenches of all time. These are the double flex head. I've had these for, I don't know, 10 years plus. These are the S&K brand. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yep, you can see it. This is the only one I've had to replace out of all of them. This is 1719. I broke the 17 end of it off on one of them before. Taking a caliper bracket bolt loose, it was stuck, and I ended up putting too much pressure on it and sheared the little pin out right there. But that's the only one I've ever had to replace. I've had these things for 10 plus years. I love them. These are my all-time favorite wrenches to ever have. But first things first, I got my other one in here, the 14. These are 14. The caliper bracket bolts are 14s, and the caliper bolts are 14s. The caliper bracket bolts are 17s. Okay, 2 minutes later, I got the caliper off. I just set it inside right here, just sitting on the lower control arm, and the caliper bracket, I took it off. It's sitting right here, and now I was going to take the rotor off, but it's stuck on here like most of them are. Toyota is really cool about this. They have screws that you can use right here. There's one right there, and then there's one right here if you want to put long screws in there and work it off. Most of the time at work, I'll just take a hammer and hit it right here in between the lug nuts, and it'll pop right off. Just like that. Okay, I got everything set out right here. I got the caliper bracket. This little workbench is actually working out pretty nice so far. I got my old rotor here. I'm going to take this little plug out right here for the e-brake. It's supposed to be like a little thing where you can supposedly adjust it, but it's kind of a pain in the butt to get to anyway with the rotor on. But I'm going to take that plug off and transfer it over to the new rotor. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some brake cleaner like I did the other side and clean off all that packaging protectant lubricant or oil, whatever. I forget the name of it off the top of my head now. I just lost the train of thought. But I got to spray all that off, and then we're going to, then I'll put that little plug in there and I'll slide this new rotor on. Really common sense stuff to do, and then we'll move on to the brake pads on the caliper bracket. Okay, now we're moving on to the brake caliper bracket. So a lot of people skip out on this. I don't know how many. This is something I see every week on customers' cars. Slide pins. I see a lot of them. At least one or two are stuck in there. Sometimes I can't even get them back out, so I have to order a new caliper and a bracket and everything and stick on there. It's a common issue. I always lube them. I take brake parts lubricant. This is the stuff I use. Basically, I'll just slide them out. They slide right out. Just unhook off that, and I'll slide them out, put some lube on it. See if I can't take one out real quick. I can't set you guys up right here. All right, let me just slide one of these out real quick. Really easy to do. I'll just always take one hand and hold onto the rubber boot and just slide it out. And what I'll do, since this one's not so nasty, most of the time when they come in, there's all rusted up. I'll take brake cleaner and spray inside there and work it back and forth and just clean them over and over and over again. It takes forever. But since this one works, it's really nice. I'm just going to put lube on it. So basically, I'll just take that, re-lube it up really good. Slide her back in. Make sure it goes over the thing, protects it, keeps water from going in. That one's done. Let's do the next one. Caliper's done, ready to go. Got it all lubed up, ready to go. Got the new rotor on. I already took and pressed in the caliper. It's really easy to do on these. I just did with some channel locks. I have a tool at work. I have a pneumatic tool at work, and we also have just a regular little squeeze clamp deal for that. But that thing, I could almost probably take my palm of my hand and push it in. It's so easy to do on this car. I mean, not much to it. So I just use my channel lock. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the caliper bracket back on using the caliper bolts. One thing I also like to do in caliper bolts and stuff is blue Loctite. I highly recommend it. Well, as you can see, this is the driver's side, but I got both sides done. These brakes, doing brakes on these cars is like bread and butter for us mechanics, especially when you're putting all new parts on. I have 35 minutes in doing this whole job. That's include jacking the car up and taking the tires off of it. So if that tells you anything, I mean, they're going to charge her over $500 to do that. It took me 35 minutes, and that's with me stopping and filming, and I even answered a phone call for a little over 2 minutes. Last but not least, the cap. There it is. Both tires are on, torqued down, 100 foot-pounds. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm not done yet. One thing I suggest you do is immediately, is what I like to do right after I do that and get the car dropped on the ground, is I'll go open the door and I'll pump the brakes till the brakes feel tight. It's a true story. I had a new kid started working with us. He was green as grass. We did a brake job on a car and he wanted to he's going to pull it around for me. I told him to pump the brakes before he left, or pump the brakes and we'll check the brake fluid. That's what it was. And he pumped the brakes and he started to pull the car out and had no brakes. He was pumping them as fast as he could, and finally the car stopped before he went off into a fence. So one thing I always suggest you do before you move the car, do anything, start it up, pump the brakes, make sure they feel good. Then check your brake fluid, which the brake fluid's right where it's supposed to be, good looking color. I just did a brake fluid service on this thing a while back. Another thing I like to do on customers' cars while we're doing brakes and stuff, is I'll check all the tire pressures. I'll go around, check all your tire pressures, make sure they're all full, even including the spare tire. I always check the spare tire too. In this car in particular is Rav4. She takes it to the dealership to get the oil changed for some reason. I don't know why, they just like doing that. But they never check her tire pressures in the spare tire, and she always has a tire pressure monitoring light on, and I always have to take that apart. I mean, how simple is that? Which I don't really fault the technician because they don't really make any money doing that. Alright, last but not least, what we're going to do is we're going to buff these headlights. This one's not as bad as the driver's side. Driver's side's kind of a little dingy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my drill with this buffing pad on here, the most aggressive one I got, and I'm going to take this rubbing compound. This is 3M rubbing compound. I use this stuff a lot. I'm going to start out with this on the headlight, then I'm going to wipe it off, then we're going to move on, and I'm finishing up with this 3M polishing compound. Doesn't that look a little bit better? Took me all of 5 minutes to do. They're looking really good and they're really slick. Alright, so here's the last but not least question I get all the time. I'm going to start answering some viewer questions. What does your door chimer sound like? I get this, I don't know how many times. I've had so many people ask me. So here we go. We're going to take the key. We're going to put it in the ignition. Ready? There it is. Well, it's the next day. I just got a package in the mail from Summit. This would be one of many packages. I just literally just opened it up and took the packaging stuff out of it and the billing and all that crap. Let's see. This is okay. I know what this is. The transmission fluid. This is the transmission fluid I'm gonna be running in it. I got a couple gallons of that. I think I got another gallon on the way. And let's see. I got some new transmission, or this would be fuel line. I got some new Russell fuel line. This is going to be, this is the stuff that, all the fittings and stuff that's going to be coming up from the fuel pump up to the carburetor. I got a fuel pressure regulator I'm going to be putting in there and I got me a new AN fitting line for 6-6. Mine's missing, I don't know whatever happened to it. But that, I guess that's just it, just all the fittings in there I needed. It's amazing how much all these fittings cost. It's unreal. But, I guess that's it for this video. Hope you guys liked it. Click the like button if you did. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. That's it for this video. I'll see y'all next time. Be good to one another. Enjoy life the way you got it. And treat people the way you want to be treated. See you next time.